It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Dutch. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague, who's going to get a round of applause. Congratulations, it's Mr. Neil Dutton, fan of Super Bowl bound Philadelphia Eagles. How are we, Neil?
I'm okay.
You okay? Have you got over Sunday yet? / into Monday?
I'm looking California and feeling Minnesota.
Nice. See what you did there. Next week, obviously, we'll talk about the Super Bowl, or one of us will anyway. This week, we're going to focus on the Conference Championship losers, a couple of questions, and then we've got what can only be described as an absolutely extraordinary interview with Matt Kelley, or at fantasy_mansion. See more than me. Neil has to put an underscore in a Twitter profile. Matt hosted the Sonic Truth Dynasty podcast and working for Roto Underworld Radio. Brilliant interview. And if you think the Cleveland Browns should pick Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley, you wait till you find out what Matt says about that.
Oh yeah, it's almost like I put those questions in to get that response.
It's almost like you did, Neil. It's almost like you did. Congratulations to you. But before we get to Matt, we just want to quickly talk about the two losers from last week and see what's next for them, like we did last week's show. Start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Really good performance, I thought. Just kind of ran out of ideas in the second half. Mainly due to the fact that they've got Blake Bortles as a quarterback, and when you got Blake Bortles as a quarterback, your playbook isn't as big as it could be if you had, a quarterback who was any good. So I guess the main question for them is, what do you do with Blake? Do you just cut him?
The easy answer is yes, because if they don't, they're going to pay him $19 million next season. Now, and that's guaranteed for injury only. So if he's not going to be the quarterback, you're certainly not going to want to play him because you don't want to pay him $19 million. He wasn't terrible. But once the Patriots shockingly worked out that the Jaguars are going to run it on first down every single time, Bortles didn't have enough, and the play calling didn't have enough that you felt confident that he could make a play. I mean, even the turnover, by the way, total bollocks that he got called down. But even so, the Patriots got the ball back 4 plays later, so it didn't hurt them. So we say something, if Washington get rid of Kirk Cousins, and then what? Kirk Cousins is at that level of, can you do better? Can you do worse? Yeah. I don't think Bortles is at that level. But, I mean, $19 million off their salary cap. They could then get into the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. They could trade for Alex Smith. If they have to keep Blake Bortles, then they need to get better. They need to ensure that Leonard Fournette plays 16 games with the same ferocity as he played his first 6 games, because he ran out of puff seriously.
I think the other issue as well, Neil, is some teams and roster constructs are different than others. And let's be honest, the Jacksonville Jaguars is a chesty team with a lot of guys, especially on defense, who aren't afraid to tell you how good they are. The fatal flaw in that is when they're all earning 5, 10, 15 million, dependent on where they are in the pay structure, and the quarterback, who they are basically holding up, is getting paid more than all of them and is terrible. And in theory, you've spent the whole year hiding him. I don't think that flies with a defense that they've got, the Calais Campbells, the Malik Jacksons, the Jalen Ramseys. It's just not going to work. So they need to move on from Blake, and they need to go somewhere. They need to find something, whatever that something is. I guess the question is, if they find someone who's better than Blake Bortles, we say it's not that hard, but it obviously is that hard because they've had Blake Bortles for 4 years. Can they get back to where they were this season and be challenging to get to the Super Bowl?
Well, as you say, they've got a very young defence for the most part. Obviously, they've got veterans like Malik Jackson, Marcel Darius, and Calais Campbell. They're not going to lose many pieces on that defence, so we know that can travel. And they're still in. Let's be honest, it's an ever-changing division, the AFC South, but it's crap. at the moment, it's more often than not, it's the least worst team that wins it. So they can certainly still compete in that division. Championship game, I don't know. There's too much, at this stage, too far out to say. But they're going to have to some turnover in offense because Allen Robinson is going to come back, but he's going to be a free agent. They've already said they may franchise tag him. Doesn't look like they're going to re-sign Marquise Lee, who, to be honest, second-round pick taken ahead of Robinson has been a bit of a disappointment. The Jacksonville Jaguars actually is one of my fantasy free agency profiles for Rotoviz at rotoviz.com. And they don't have an awful lot of cap space because, as I say, they've got 19 million going to Blake Bortles. But I can see them, they're going to keep Allen Robinson. Let Marquise Lee go unless he wants to take serious low money. And they'll probably cut Alan Hearns as well because he's being paid like a 60 catch receiver when he's really only a 30 catch receiver. So there's going to be upheaval. They've got youngsters, they've got D.D. Westbrook, Keelan Cole, even Jalen Mickens. They have got some young pieces, but it's with every team in the NFL. If they haven't got a quarterback, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, and I think that's where you need to look at. There's the other franchises in the division have quarterbacks, but all of those quarterbacks have question marks. So we have the Texans have Deshaun Watson. Will he be fit? The Colts have Andrew Luck. Will he be fit? And the Titans have Marcus Mariota. And the question is he good? And I hope he is, but there's been questions around that, and coaching or whatever, talent around him. We have to wait and see. The Jacksonville Jaguars, with the exception of Bortles, have pieces around that we know can win games, even with a quarterback who's not that good. So I think we go from there. The team you beat, Neil, the Minnesota Vikings.
I played very little part.
Well, you did, yeah, but that's it. I mean, I don't know if beat's the right word. Shellacked.
Kicked the crap out of.
I'm sure you didn't think the score was going to be 35-7 when they suddenly marched down the field on their first drive and made it 7.
Oh, it wasn't a march. They walked down the field. And Najee Good, I'll say this, Najee, I don't know if he still does, I'll have to check, did follow me for a time on Twitter. I don't ever want to see him on the field again unless it's a special teams play. I certainly don't want to see him lined up against a tight end in coverage.
No. I suppose the question is, Neil, we have a kind of running joke on the Cincinnati Bengals. I think everyone does in their coaching tree of woe, playoff tree of woe especially. Mike Zimmer won the first playoff game by a Bengals under Lewis tree this year, but then did Bengalitis strike the Vikings? Because that was a very Washington, Cincinnati, LA Rams style playoff performance.
I think the problem is that the magic just ran out for Case Keenum. He'd been incredible for what he is, but you have that emotional win against the New Orleans Saints, and then you march down the field against what is on paper a comparable defense, but then their offense shows, better man, actually the Eagles' offense stalled. It was a pick six that got them back into it. And then the Eagles scored again. And the Vikings were driving again. But then they turned the ball over in the red zone. And you just thought that then it was the case of, that's it now, there's no more magic dust left to sprinkle. Stephon Diggs got kneed in the back accidentally. He wasn't the same all game. Adam Thielen was playing with broken bones in his back as well. He wasn't the same. Kyle Rudolph hasn't been fit all season. They can't run the ball, although they do try, bless them. In terms of pass-run ratio, they're actually ridiculously high, for what they get out of it. It's a bit like, me eating a salad one day in my life and saying, well, I'm still fat. They run the ball and are still surprised that they don't get anything out of it. It was just a case of the Eagles' defense was just that much better than their offense, and the offense was able to feed off that, and on top, with some creative play calling and the veterans stepping up, especially the free agents that the Eagles have brought in. The Vikings played their Super Bowl the week before, and they just couldn't raise themselves for one more game.
Yeah, I think obviously they'd won the week before, but the vaunted defense that everyone was talking about, it gave up a lot of points to the Saints in the second half, and was not non-existent against the Eagles, but didn't get anywhere near what people expected in the secondary or in the front four. It didn't work, and that's an issue. And that if your team's built to be able to, keep games tight, not have shootouts, allowing 30. Although the offense scores 7 points, that's obviously an issue. But conceding 35 is also an issue. The big issue for the Minnesota Vikings looking at next year is they've got 3 quarterbacks, but they've actually got none. They've got Teddy Bridgewater, they've got Sam Bradford, and they've got Case Keenum, all of which are not contracted for the Minnesota Vikings as we speak, starting next season. I guess the question is, Neil, do you keep 1? Do you keep 2? Do you ridiculously keep 3, or do you actually keep 0 of them?
Well, if we look at this logically, they're not going to franchise tag Case Keenum based on 1 season. They'd be stupid to do that. I mean, they've got the cap space to do it, but why would you? We have to treat this season as an outlier compared to what he has done. And bear in mind, there's going to be a lot of change because the offense might change a bit because we don't know who's going to come in, so we don't know what they're going to ask him to do. Keenum, I think is 30 years old as well. Let someone else pay him stupid money to reinforce recency bias. Sam Bradford has shown he can function in this offense. And let's be honest, is he going to take a low offer to stay? Of course he's not.
I was going to say, as he recently, as he's probably the richest quarterback in NFL history.
Yeah. Now, if he's fit and fully healthy, you could make the case that they will pay Sam Bradford.
But Neil, if you were fit and fully healthy, you could play semi-professional football. You haven't been that since you were 12. Neither Sam Bradford. So obviously, the person with the least amount of question marks, and also the youngest, is Teddy Bridgewater. And I think for that reason as well, because there's still a lot of question marks about him coming off the injury he did. If they decide to go with Teddy Bridgewater, he'd be the cheapest option. So, and then you've got him to be competent. You've got Stephon Diggs. You've got Adam Thielen. They need something else from a third receiver because Jarius Wright is a passenger. Laquan Treadwell, bust. And Kyle Rudolph, as I say, hobbled through the season. But they're going to get Dalvin Cook. I think they may cut Latavius Murray because pretty much all he does is run in a very fast, straight line. Can't do anything else. Jerick McKinnon isn't going to stay. He wants to be a starter somewhere else. Best of luck. So I would lean towards them keeping Teddy Bridgewater. But it depends if Sam Bradford can trick them into thinking he's fully healthy. I think they'd sign him to a long-term deal. Yeah, I think I'd go with Bridgewater, although me personally, I'd look at keeping none of them and kicking the tyres on a Kirk Cousins style player who, okay, maybe, not, maybe only equally as talented as Sam Bradford, for example, but doesn't miss games. So Sam Bradford isn't taking a pay cut, so I can actually get Kirk Cousins for the same amount of money, and I know he's going to play. Then I know which one I'm doing, and I think it's a no-brainer. I think that, however, that's what I would do. But I haven't got an emotional attachment to Teddy Bridgewater because I'm not from Minnesota, and I'm not, Spielman, so I don't have that emotional attachment to Teddy Bridgewater. I think they do, so I think they keep Bridgewater and bring someone else in as a, I don't know, half backup, half starter. Do you know what I mean? Like a 1.5.
A bridge.
Like to say, maybe they go in a kind of Bridgewater, Alex Smith 1-year deal kind of concept. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know what Alex Smith money wants, blah, blah, blah. But that kind of concept that you've got someone who can allow Bridgewater to get even healthier, because people never expected him to be on the roster this season because of the seriousness of the injury. Yeah,
I was going to suggest Alex Smith because again they've got the cap space. It's just a question of how much do you take away from your offense with Alex Smith compared to what he actually gives you. But they've got. Let's be honest, Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen they're not burners. They're not going to go streak downfield. They're clever. They're efficient route runners. So someone with Alex Smith, add in his rushing ability. I don't hate it.
No, I don't hate it either. I don't see it happening, but it's something that I would look at. But as I said, we've got no emotional attachment to these players, and I think the Vikings organisation do have an emotional attachment to Bridgewater, and I understand that. That's fine.
You're saying I have no emotional feelings towards Sam Bradford?
No, you have emotional feelings towards Sam Bradford, but they're not the ones we're talking about. Although let's be brutally honest, like Sam Bradford is one of the. It sounds absolutely outrageous, but Sam Bradford is one of the major reasons you're in the Super Bowl.
Yep. God bless Sammy Sleeves.
Exactly. Well, Neil, that's the review of the conference championship losers. We'll talk Patriots and Eagles next week, but we need to just get on with Matt Kelley, Fantasy Mansion, as he's known on Twitter, with what can only be described as one of the best interviews we've ever done.
I think that's fair.
Let's do this. And joining us now, Max and Lyrical, Matt Kelley, or better known as @fantasy_mansion, host of my favourite name podcast in the world, the Sonic Truth Dynasty podcast. That's one you need. That's one you got to copyright. Also, Roto Underworld Radio, and proud custodian of PlayerProfile.com. Matt, how are we today?
Yes, the Sonic Truth Show. Love that. I remember where I was when I came up with the name for that. Yes, it was we need to speak the truth, right? We're bringing the truth. A lot of people can't handle the truth. We need to bring the truth, regardless of whether or not they can handle it. And then my friend, who I co-host the show with up until now, Nate Liss from Seattle, and the band Sonic Youth, right? And then also, the truth is that you need to fade the youth. Oh, the Sonic Truth! We have a show title. Boom!
Can you remember how we came up with ours? I'm pretty sure we were drunk in a pub in Liverpool.
I think you asked someone, what should we wax Lyrical about on our show? And they said, that's a good title. And that was about all the thought we gave it.
There's a lot more thought that's gone into Matt than ours. I mean, we get straight on with it, Matt. You've been on the record of being tremendously excited about the 2018 running back class for quite some time. Beyond your top three, which I believe is Barkley, Chubb and Geis, who else are you hoping to go all in your rookie drafts for?
I think Rashad Penny. Right now, he's at the Senior Bowl. He's doing well, right? He's showing well. The scouts love what they're seeing from Rashad Penny. They're timing his miles per hour, and he's fast enough, right? So the question with Rashad Penny has always been, how athletic is he? Because we know he's productive. Anytime a guy goes over 2,000 yards at the college level, you stand up, it gets your attention. Then you're like, well, okay, how big is he? Oh, he's 224 pounds. That was the biggest thing. The biggest data point to come from the Senior Bowl for me was Rashad Penny's weight. The fact that he's 225 and didn't check in under, because a lot of these guys, they check in under. They're listed at 218, 220 by the college or university, and then they come in at 210 or 215 or whatever it is. Low, 5, you can project at least a diminishment, a decrease, about 5 pounds based on what these guys are listed at versus what they end up checking in at either the Senior Bowl or the Combine. For Rashad Penny to come in actually bigger than he was listed at, that was very impressive. So now we have a full-blown workhorse profile of a guy that can do it all on the football field, was incredibly productive. If he's fast, then he looks a lot like Melvin Gordon. That's good. The fact that you could get a Melvin Gordon in the back half of the first round of a Dynasty rookie draft is why this rookie running back class has the potential to be just so epic. It's not just that we could be looking at one of the best running backs of all time in Saquon Barkley, the next LaDainian Tomlinson, but it's the other guys, it's running backs 2 through 10 that make this class truly special.
Go on, mate.
I just said Matt brought up one of my favourite things about understanding a draft. That this guy in college was 6'4" and 250 pounds, and then he goes to get measured and he's actually 6 foot and like 180. Right. And you're like, why are we allowed to lie so tremendously about someone's height and weight? The guy
that I think of first when I think about this was Taywan Taylor last year. I was worried Taywan Taylor was just going to be very small and not fast enough. So if you're going to be small, right, you're going to be 180. Look at the guys that are 180 in the NFL. It's Deshaun Jackson. It's T.Y. Hilton. It's John Brown. It's Brandon Cooks. What do those guys have in common? right? Most of them are very fast. There's very few Antonio Browns, right? Most of the wide receivers that look like Antonio Brown barely become contributors. That's why he's so special. Most of them with that body type, they have to have blazing speed. So knowing that Taywan Taylor probably didn't have blazing speed, I was very worried. But then to see him check in at 205 and to have the size and the BMI to really be equipped to accumulate yards after the catch in swaths at the NFL level, that he could be more like Golden Tate, that he could be more like Doug Baldwin in the slot, that was huge for me. The fact that that's the other player that I recall checking in heavier and it being a very pleasant surprise.
See, I've often, claimed to be lighter than I am, and then when people meet me, are very, very upset that I'm actually heavier. Usually females. Are there any wide receivers you would take in lieu of a running back in the early rounds of rookie drafts?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you've got Washington and Sutton. I like Washington. I like Sutton. James Washington looks like the most sure thing. So if you're in a win now scenario and you needed a wide receiver and you needed to use the draft to get it, I would target James Washington. The problem is James Washington is a good player. He's nice, but he doesn't have the wow factor that you would like to see in an elite wide receiver prospect. There's just not even a Corey Davis in this class. So if there's not even a Corey Davis in this class, much less an Amari Cooper level prospect. Amari Cooper was one of the best wide receiver prospects in the last decade. So, okay, you have an Amari Cooper. Okay, you can see not drafting a running back in order to take an Amari Cooper because you're just so excited about that profile. The 99th percentile breakout age, the incredible college dominator, the athleticism across the board. You loved all those boxes that an Amari Cooper checks. There's not an Amari Cooper in this class. So in lieu of an Amari Cooper or even a Corey Davis, then you must draft these running backs. The running backs also have a much higher hit rate in dynasty rookie drafts, especially in the first round. Think back to the first round wide receivers the last 3 years. Brashad Perriman, Philip Dorsett, Kevin White. We can go on and on and on and on. But even the running backs that struggled in their first couple of years were productive in year 3. Look at Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon was highly inefficient. You could say that his rookie year was one of the great failure rookie years we've seen in quite some time. One of the least efficient rookie seasons ever by a running back, and yet it didn't matter. It didn't matter because the team had invested a first-round pick in a running back, and they were going to feed that running back. Running backs are driven by opportunity, and we know that what does draft capital do? Draft capital is not as much an indication of talent as it is an indication of future opportunity. So you see a first-round, second-round running back, you know that player is going to get fed for the next 2 to 3 years. So that's a very sound, safe investment as opposed to investing in a Brashad Perriman who you don't know what he is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, me and Dalton have multiple discussions on wide receivers, and as someone who's a fan of the Washington semi-professional football team, the high draft pick wide receiver of Josh Doctson hasn't quite worked out to everybody's tastes.
Right, you can go on and on, man. You can go to Corey Coleman hasn't worked out. A lot of these wide receivers don't work out. Who did work out from that class? Stephon Diggs. Well, okay, he was a 5th-round pick. You didn't get him in the first round of your dynasty rookie draft anyway. That's the whole point. Now the league is leaning more and more on the slot receivers. And those slot receivers are available in the 3rd and 4th rounds of dynasty rookie drafts. That's where you drafted Cooper Kupp, right? Cooper Kupp was the most productive rookie last year. The second most productive was Keelan Cole, and he wasn't even drafted in dynasty rookie drafts. So get out of here. And what if you love X receivers, right? You love the 6'4", 220-pound body type. You like a Dez Bryant, Julio Jones player. That's the guy you want on your dynasty team. Well, you could have had that in Kenny Golladay in the 3rd round. You don't need to risk that first-round draft capital in dynasty on a wide receiver, particularly in a season in which it's going to be one of the best draft classes we've ever seen at the running back position.
Talking about the question, so we're going to say, with Jeremy Hill's reign of terror in Cincinnati finally at an end, a guy we talked about a lot this year on the show is Joe Mixon. Should we buy high on him? What?
Yeah, you need to buy. Well, it's buy low, right? Joe Mixon technically underperformed. He missed expectations, so now it's almost a buy low. You always buy low on those first and second round running backs that were inefficient the previous season. That's the Melvin Gordon corollary. They're not going to come back over the top of Joe Mixon and draft running back early. Joe Mixon is actually one of the few safe running backs. Most of the early running backs drafted last year, from Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette, they're safe, right? We know Dalvin Cook is safe. Even though he tore his ACL, one of the few safe running backs. Most of the veterans, most of the incumbents that are 24 years old or older, they're at risk. You need to be Le'Veon Bell or David Johnson, or you're at risk of a running back from this 2018 class usurping you and stealing your job in training camp.
Obviously, the last 2 years, you mentioned Leonard Fournette there. He's one of 2 running backs in the last 2 years to be taken with the 4th overall pick, and that team then made the playoffs. So obviously that's linked, that's science, obviously, as we know. A friend of ours is of the opinion that teams at the top of the draft should just draft Saquon Barkley because he is that talented. So I'd like you to tell us, Matt, in your own words, why this is a terrible idea.
Well, because markets matter, right? It matters what things cost, and it matters what you can replace things with, right? So if you go to the marketplace and steaks are, whatever they are, $15 for a steak, right? Or you could upgrade and get the best. You get a Kobe beef, right? But the difference is, from $15 to $25. You're still in that steak range, right? The steak, right? The signature aspect of the meal. Well, at the NFL level, that's not the running back. The running back is not the focal point of an offense. Even Leonard Fournette, okay, you could say Leonard Fournette's the focal point of the offense, but because NFL teams largely are pass-oriented, they don't value running backs at the same level that they value some of these other key positions. The running back is not one of the cornerstone positions on a franchise. The cornerstone positions are left tackle, their edge rusher, it's cornerback, it's quarterback. Okay? Those are the positions that have the highest value because of position scarcity. And that's why they're so expensive. Kobe beef is expensive because it's scarce. Ahi tuna or a fatty tuna, at a sushi restaurant is expensive. Why? Because it's scarce. Because you just can't go out and get it anywhere. You have to go to a particular sushi restaurant if you want to get the best tuna that's out there. Well, quarterback is hard to find. The nice thing about running backs, if you're an NFL team, is they're everywhere, right? You could just dip into the free agent pool like the Patriots last year and get a Rex Burkhead who has an all-purpose workhorse skill set at a discount. Because the Rex Burkheads are out there, it really diminishes the marginal value. It pushes down the value of the entire running back position. Just ask Le'Veon Bell about this phenomenon. He doesn't want to be franchised because the NFL doesn't value running backs. So the franchise tag on the running back is something like $12 million, where the franchise tag on a quarterback is like double. That's how much the disparity is between how the NFL values quarterbacks versus running backs. And then on top of that, there's been this running back talent infusion, this running back renaissance. So now the supply, the league is inundated with a supply of talented running backs, and there's very little demand. So what happens when there's a lot of supply and not a lot of demand? The price crashes. So you don't want to pay a lot for a position where the price is crashing. That doesn't make any fucking sense. So as good as Saquon Barkley is, it makes no sense to pay premium price for an asset that's crashing.
I think the classic example that yourself, JJ Zachariason, and I've latched onto this is the Cowboys took Ezekiel Elliott with 4. They should have taken Derrick Henry in the second round and taken Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, it's an easy thought experiment. You can always go back and look at the running back that's drafted in the first round and show how that was a catastrophic mistake for that franchise. So, for example, you could argue And when I say catastrophic mistake, I mean cost them playoff wins. So Jalen Ramsey on that Dallas Cowboys team would have been a game changer. I believe they would have beaten the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs and moved on to the next round. Now, I think the same thing is true for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Had they opted to draft a Patrick Mahomes or a Deshaun Watson, the next two quarterbacks on the draft board, I believe that would have been the difference that would have allowed them to beat the Patriots. It would have been an overwhelming talent advantage against the Patriots last weekend if they had anyone back there but Bortles. So that was a catastrophic mistake. You do the thought experiment. What does the Jacksonville Jaguars offense look like with Patrick Mahomes and TJ Yeldon? It's better. It's more efficient and more prolific than the Bortles-Fournette offense.
It's undeniable. I think sometimes you look at the teams and go, like, you guys get paid a lot of money, and surely you must think about certain things at certain times, and you don't do this any of the time. But
no, these are emotional decisions.
Yeah.
Okay, you think that this is the top of a meritocracy, that it must be so cutthroat and so competitive and so clinical, right? Because they're just smart guys. You know, these guys could be surgeons. They could have done anything, but they decided to go out and be great businessmen, great leaders of men, own football teams, become general managers of football teams, you know, high prestige roles in society. And so you would think that there would be this rational decision making that goes on, but that's not the case at all. It's very emotional. They talk to a guy in an interview. They watch film of a particular game where a particular player played well. They watch him work out, and they develop an affinity for that player that overrides reason when it comes to draft time. And when they go to push the button on that player, the emotion takes over.
I think the team that's in about to walk straight into this almost thought experiment is the Cleveland Browns. They've got 2 high draft picks, and if they somehow hit on those premium draft picks in 2018, we assume one will be a quarterback, although a lot of people are saying, against what you're saying, Matt, and they're going to pick Saquon Barkley. But do we think people exactly? Do we think?
No, but let me just explain this. Let me say, if they take Saquon Barkley, it's such a catastrophic mistake because you could just draft a Royce Freeman, right? And you could have a Thunder and Lightning. This is what NFL teams do successfully: is they deploy the running back position tactically. That's been the learning. That's how the Patriots leverage the running back position. That's how they deploy running backs based on situation. When it's a running down, a running situation, you need 2 yards, you're going to go put Royce Freeman out there. You need a workhorse, you put Royce Freeman out there. He's 225 pounds, one of the most productive running backs in the history of college football, and he can be had in the middle rounds. And you pair him with Duke Johnson, who would be one of the NFL's best satellite backs. He's been at the top of the playerprofiler.com efficiency metrics for consecutive seasons. There he is with some of the highest juke rate in the league the last 2 seasons, which is evaded tackles per touch, breakaway run rate, and all our different efficiency metrics showing, you know, success rate above expectation. There's Duke Johnson right near the top, as well as being near the top of the league in targets and receptions. He is one of the NFL's best satellite backs, and we actually comped Christian McCaffrey to Duke Johnson last year, and that's looking like a very apropos comp where no one was comping Christian McCaffrey to anyone that, you know, that didn't look like, you know, Peyton Hillis or whatever, right? So we were actually comping him based on the numbers. The numbers said Christian McCaffrey looks like Duke Johnson. Now, after last year, it's looking like Christian McCaffrey would love to be the next Duke Johnson. That's how good Duke Johnson has been, and that's how the Cleveland Browns could optimize their backfield by going with a Thunder and Lightning. That's what the Jacksonville Jaguars should have done. That way they could have got Corey Grant on the field. Whenever you see Corey Grant touch the ball, boom! He's explosive. It's like an electrical wire hits the field. So you just back into it. Just by not drafting Leonard Fournette, that gives you the ability to get more Corey Grant on the field, and one Corey Grant splash play could have been the difference in last week's game. So no, do not draft Saquon Barkley. There's an infinite possibilities for solutions at the running back position to replace Isaiah Crowell in the draft The answer is not Saquon Barkley. Also, because if you draft Saquon Barkley, you're marginalizing Duke Johnson because Saquon Barkley is great in all phases. So then you're what are you doing? You're opting to automatically underutilize one of your best assets on offense by overpaying for a position that's been hugely undervalued by the league. That's why it makes absolutely no sense. That's worst case scenario. I would rather, I mean, this is extreme, but I despise Josh Allen because I think stats matter. That's why. When you go back through, you look at college efficiency, college completion percentage, QBR, yards per attempt, whatever it is, whatever you want to look at, those that are the best end up having a higher probability of hitting in the NFL. So if you're statistically poor, like Jay Cutler at the college level, you're an outlier. It's very difficult. It's a very small number of quarterbacks historically that have been statistically poor that ended up breaking out and becoming productive NFL players. It's just highly unlikely. It's much more likely that if you're super efficient at the college level, like a Russell Wilson, like an Andrew Luck, that you're going to carry that over into the NFL because if you're good at football, you're good at football. So even with all that said, and Josh Allen has to be the worst quarterback prospect I've ever seen considered as a first-round prospect by the NFL draft media. I mean, he's an abomination statistically. Now, he's so bad, and it makes my brain hurt to even think about the Cleveland Browns drafting him. But I would even prefer them draft Josh Allen to Saquon Barkley, just because the positional difference in valuation, the marginal difference on a quarterback that hits is so much higher. That value is so much higher than a running back that hits. So for that reason, I would even prefer Josh Allen, anyone but Saquon Barkley, to the Cleveland Browns.
So I'm interested in this because, as you said, stats matter. I think Josh Allen's got about the same completion percentage as Jake Locker did at Washington. That's not a good example.
We've seen this. We've seen this quarterback over and over again. I can go down the list. I mean, even the ones that you could say were quote unquote hits, that they were, usable, right? That they were replacement level, like a Ryan Tannehill, right? Okay, these are guys with athleticism and arm strength and all the things that people love about Josh Allen, but very few of them ever exceed expectations, right? Very few of them ever truly ascend like a Russell Wilson. When you see a Russell Wilson ascend, those of us that are aware of the statistics are not surprised, because Russell Wilson had the highest QBR in the history of the metric at the college level. So when Russell Wilson ascends to the top of the sport, it's not surprising to those that are familiar with the statistics.
So I'm interested really in, like, if it was you, and obviously you don't want to pick Josh Allen, who do you think the Browns should pick? Because they obviously should pick a quarterback, because as you quite rightly pointed out, it's a premium position. They need to pick one. They haven't got one. Who are they going to go with? Yeah, they got to go with Baker Mayfield. The beauty is that you can get Baker Mayfield at 4. I mean, that's a great gift, right? If this was a rational operation, the NFL, 32 rational actors who are looking at the data points that actually predict performance, then they would all be rushing out to get Baker Mayfield. I mean, every franchise, even those that didn't have a quarterback, would know that it's in their best interest just to get Baker Mayfield, because his future value is so high once he pops, and he has a high probability of popping and ascending at the NFL level because he's the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. He's statistically superior to Andrew Luck, but because he doesn't have the same body type, he doesn't have the 6'5", 235-pound body type, then understand, okay, yes, when you go across the NFL, most of the successful quarterbacks are 6'2" or above. Most of them meet certain thresholds of height and weight, in which Baker Mayfield does not meet those thresholds. So for that reason, I'm not going to say he's the best quarterback prospect of all time, but he is the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. Because no quarterback has been as statistically successful in college, according to, looking back through time,
as Baker Mayfield. I mean, no quarterback has his 2 seasons that he put together at Oklahoma. No one's been that spectacular, ever.
Unfortunately, now Matt, we're going to have to cancel this show, as at the moment Baker Mayfield's about 15 and my quarterback's about to go to probably Jacksonville or somewhere, so I'm going to have to shut the show down so Washington pick Baker Mayfield. Dalton.
Oh my God, that would be great. I'd love to see Baker Mayfield in Washington. That's a great fit for Baker Mayfield. He could do it. We've seen strange things, man. Remember watching Aaron Rodgers in the green room as he just continued to fall outside the top 20? Remember watching Geno Smith fall outside the first round? Yeah. These were projected to be early first-round picks. We don't know. I mean, the NFL is a very irrational place. Yeah, something weird could happen in the next couple months, and all of a sudden, Baker Mayfield. I mean, he already grabbed his crotch, right? So if he doesn't grab his crotch, maybe he's a first round. Maybe he's mocked to the Browns at 101. But the crotch grab, what does that hurt him? 5 to 10 slots because of the new comp to Johnny Manziel, which is totally unfair and ridiculous. But okay, fine. Remember, Johnny Manziel had an elite offensive line and Mike Evans. Okay, that's not what Baker Mayfield was playing with at Oklahoma. So I would ideally like to see the Cleveland Browns draft Bradley Chubb, because an edge rusher that looks like Bradley Chubb and has Bradley Chubb's athleticism, which we're projecting, but it looks like Bradley Chubb is going to be one of these Aaron Donald level defensive linemen. So if you can get the Aaron Donald of this draft in Bradley Chubb and then also follow that up with a gift of Baker Mayfield at 4, I mean, to me, that's how you optimize the talent configuration of your team, because then on defense, then you have that cool bookend edge rusher thing where the pocket's collapsing constantly on your opponent. That's what you want. When you just take a step back and say, how can we win games? Well, Baker Mayfield helps you win games. Bradley Chubb helps you win games. So maybe get those 2 guys. Maybe those guys! God! Not Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley.
You mentioned early on the Sonic Truth podcast, obviously with yourself and Nate. You mentioned on one of your compilation shows that Nate won't be continuing as co-host. Oh, sorry, and co. As the iTunes reviewers called him.
And company.
And company, yeah.
And company. Yeah, he resented that.
To be honest, it's what Paul gets called on this. Are you going to be doing it by yourself, or do you have another co-host coming on, or is it too early to tell?
We're going to rotate co-hosts for a little while. So we're going to have some co-hosts come on semi-regularly. I'm hoping to get Nate to come on. So the thing is, you listen to a compilation show. So on our show, the Road to Wonderworld Radio on iTunes, you can see the Sonic Truth podcast best of. We have best of part 1 and best of part 2, just because there were so many great moments. We had to get them all in. And actually, SoundCloud wouldn't process a file that was 5 hours long. So we had to split the file. So we was a part 1 and a part 2. And when you listen back, you can hear me really give Nate a hard time. So part of the show premise is that I really punish Nate throughout the show when he's bad at radio, when he says uninteresting things, when he's not paying attention, when he's not listening, when he just says absurd. He has absurd takes that make no sense. So I make sure that he is punished and that we properly call it out for the audience, because the audience is thinking it. So if the audience is thinking, I should mention this, that what you're saying is ridiculous, or that you weren't listening. So some people might think, oh, well, he might be mad at Matt, that he's leaving the show because he's just sick of being treated so poorly by Matt. That's not the case. When you listen to Nate in the outtakes, half of the beratement is his idea. He wants this. He knows that makes for good radio. He loves doing the show. The problem is he has these other hobbies, and the show really was draining his free time, because, as you guys know, doing a podcast, it's not just the record time. There's the show prep, there's the editing, and it ended up being a big project for him, and he's taking on a bigger role at his real job, which is taking him away from his family even more. So there's more travel, and it's just he sat down with his wife, really wanted to do the show, but he sort of ran the numbers on his life and realized that he just wasn't going to be able to pull it off. And he was really honest about it because, I mean, he has been overwhelmed by the positive support on Twitter. People want him back. He knows that the people want him. He loves doing the show. And, you know, we're very good friends, but it's just not going to happen. But so the real goal is to try to see how many shows we can get him to do. That's really the game, is to see how many shows I can convince him to do. Can I get him to come on every month? I mean, it's going to be a real treat. He will come on. I promise he's going to come on. But, you know, whether it's every month or whatever it is, it'll be a treat because, you know, he's a rapper. So whenever we have beefs with other podcast hosts or writers, he comes on and finishes them off by slaying them in a rap battle that's one-sided. We've been doing one-sided rap battles where Nate just battles other people and they just cry and cower and slink away. So we need to keep that going. At the very least, I promise there's going to be at least one Nate surprise rap appearance in 2018.
You say, Matt, you know, if you think the audience are thinking it, you have to say it. I'm going to have to say it as well. Mains, what the hell is going on in your house?
I don't know. I'm not too sure. What I will say is, though, it's interesting that Matt thinks that Neil would know anything about show prep or editing or publishing. Neil just turns up and reads from a script.
Turn up, put my headphones in, and you know, it just magically it just happens.
As we've already alluded to, it's busy times for GM, both in fantasy and reality. And I guess the question we want you to answer, Matt, is if they're not already, why should people be heading over to playerprofiler.com as soon as this podcast is finished?
Well, it wasn't meant to be the best site for Dynasty Leagues. But in terms of Dynasty League research, we've discovered just the natural evolution of things that Dynasty Leaguers have really gravitated to the site. So now is the time when people are doing Dynasty League research and they're trying to craft trades. They're trying to maybe trade for draft picks. And going to Player Profiler, we bring the data all together. So we bring the athleticism data in. We bring in the metrics from their on-field production from the previous season. So not just their raw yards and touchdowns and things of that nature, but opportunity level data. So opportunity share, red zone target share, things of that nature. And then also efficiency metrics. So dominator rating, production premium, target premium, yards per target, yards per pass route. So you really get to see a window into how efficient this player is. And that does matter in Dynasty. It's nice to stockpile your roster in Dynasty with efficient players. So you get the full picture on a player. You get to see how athletic they are. You get to see how efficient they are on the football field. You get to see how the opportunity may be, rising for that player, especially over the course of the season. Those are the best players to target in Dynasty, where you saw a slow uptick of opportunity the previous season, culminating in maybe a successful run at the end of the season, as well as some true efficiency as well. So you see a player that was top 5 in multiple categories. Do you know who fit that bill last offseason was Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen's opportunity, his target share continued to creep up throughout the season. In week 17, the final week of the season, not really a fantasy relevant week, but the final week of the season, he was the number 1 scorer among wide receivers. So he had over 200 yards in the final game for the Minnesota Vikings last season. And then you go back and you look at the efficiency metrics. He was one of the most efficient wide receivers in the NFL. He was top 5 in yards per target, top 5 in catch rate. So he was top 5 in a number of metrics. In fact, he was the only wide receiver that finished top 5 in all of the important predictive efficiency metrics on playerprofiler.com. So it was all there that you should have been targeting Adam Thielen last offseason. And we have a data analysis tool which allows you to pull a list of players by metric. So you can see, who has the best burst score from the combine, which combines the broad jump and the vertical jump into one equally weighted metric. You can see the most explosive players. You can see the most efficient players. And that helps you generate ideas for off-season trades and dynasty. So that would be, I think, the number one reason why people should be using Player Profiler at this point in the season because with Dynasty Leagues, they're all year round, and the Dynasty Leaguers have really enjoyed leveraging Player Profiler to improve their Dynasty League rosters. In fact, every year at the end of the season, at the end of December, I get a number of screenshots of people saying, look at this Dynasty roster, and because of Player Profiler, I went out and I acquired player X, Y, and Z, and that really feels good.
Well, Matt, the last question we've got for you, we haven't got you a present, as that was my job probably, and I forgot. But if we had the power, I'm terribly sorry. If we had the power to grant you one wish from the following three choices, which one would your choice be? An end to coach-centric analysis, summary kneecapping for internet trolls, or Jeff Janis on the Patriots in 2018?
Okay, I think Jeff Janis will succeed in a lot of places. Most teams, I think that any team that goes out and signs. Here's the thing. This is sort of reverse. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy with Jeff Janis, because any team that goes out and signs him necessarily appreciates him and will give him an opportunity. Just like you saw with Rex Burkhead on the Patriots this year. They signed him because they appreciate him, and then all of a sudden he's scoring touchdowns. So you just don't be surprised. No matter where he ends up, Jeff Janis will be a contributor next year. Now, if I had a wish to be granted, it would be at least a major diminishment, a major throttling of coach-centric analysis. I would love it if most people, when they look at a player's performance, their knee-jerk reaction would be, let's study the player. Okay, and then if they want to go further, let's study the player's supporting cast. Let's focus on the players on the football field. Let's focus on the players that are influencing the outcome of the game and each individual's player performance. So when you look at a running back, let's look at the quarterback. Maybe the quarterback was influencing how good the running back could be, right? Let's look at the offensive line. How much was the offensive line unit as a whole, the run blocking efficiency, which is a metric we have on Player Profiler? How much was that impacting the running back? And not just going back to the lazy analysis and calling it, the Coach X offense and saying the reason why this running back was successful is because, Coach X loves to emphasize the run. Because it's you don't even need the last name of the coach. You can just insert Coach X into the analysis, and it's the same template analysis every time. It's you can see it with Sean McVay this year, right? I understand that Sean McVay figured out a gimmick where he was able to call audibles into Jared Goff's headset if they got to the line of scrimmage early enough. And then defenses in the second half figured it out. And the offensive efficiency for the Rams declined at a higher rate than any other team in the second half. So it was really a tale of two halves for the Rams. Very efficient first half, largely inefficient second half for the Rams post-gimmick, once the gimmick was figured out, because Sean McVay felt the need to share the gimmick with the public. Oh, wow, look at that. He's actually treating Jared Goff like a puppet, like a puppet quarterback. Like it really is. It was like Master Blaster with the Mad Max movies and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, where, okay, he's Jared Goff is the giant, and Sean McVay is the little guy, right, riding on his back. That gets figured out very quickly. There are very few gimmicks, actually, that last an entire season. Remember the Wildcat? Gimmicks don't last a full season, okay? But you want to just run out and credit Sean McVay? That's not the answer. It's Sean McVay's not the reason. Go back and take a step back and actually study the moves that were made in the offseason, the incredible talent influx that happened with the Rams. That we talked about this on my show. I'm sure you wrote about it as well. A lot of smart people wrote about the talent influx. And with the Rams, it was a situation where they had nowhere to go but up. And they were making the right moves in the front office to improve the team, to improve the offensive line, to improve the supporting weapons. And when you have a more efficient offense, you can sustain drives. And when you sustain drives, you can score more touchdowns. And it's no surprise that you put a talented player in an upgraded situation in Todd Gurley that he's going to thrive. It's not necessarily because the guy on the sideline wearing the khakis has drawn up some scheme or some play that he's called that's never been seen before. That defense is just like, what is this? This is crazy. We don't know where to be. We don't know where to go. This play is so innovative. Next thing they know, they're looking at each other, and Todd Gurley's just whooshing by for a touchdown. Oh, damn. What a great play call that caused Todd Gurley to score a touchdown. No, that's not what happens. But that's the story NFL analysts tell, and I'm tired of it. I'm just tired of it because I know it's hard work to go analyze the individual players instead of just falling back on coach cliches. But I just think that we can do better.
But you're okay with trolls getting kneecapped?
Hey man, I live off the trolls. It's one of the there's a sort of a remora fish shark relationship there where the trolls are the remora fish. I'm the shark. I'm the apex predator. So one of my catchphrases, and Christopher Harris. So I am the apex predator. Then the remora fish just eat the little crumbs on my back as they fall off, and I need them. I need them to help me stay honest, and I need to know when there's this sort of underlying sentiment about what I'm. There's like there is a sentiment that I stink at quarterback evaluation. And if it were not for the trolls bringing this to my attention, I wouldn't have known this. And then once some troll volunteers to walk out from the herd, right, and raise his hand or a buzzard, fly down and poop on my head with some analysis on Twitter that enrages me, and it's just a dick move, that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and shoot that bird out of the sky. First and foremost, know that okay, that was a warning to me. I better go on my podcast and make sure that all the buzzards know what happens and that my quarterback analysis is very good, and allow them to see my track record of quarterback analysis back through time and set the record straight. And no, next time you're not going to get a shit off. You're not going to get me in the head with that. I'm going to shoot you before you even have a chance to shit. I don't even know what I just said. I don't even know what that Anyway, so I like trolls for that reason.
Matt, absolutely wonderful interview. Thank you so much for your time. We will let you go and to practice some shooting, I assume.
I guess. Yeah, sounds good. I don't want to get shit on.
Who does? Cheers, Matt. Well done. That's what happens when you mix genius with anger.
Absolutely. To be honest, 2017, we didn't do an awful lot of interviews, but I think we've got 2018 off to something of a little flyer.
Oh, unbelievable stuff. And for those people who are doing their mock drafts and picking the Browns to pick Josh Allen first and Saquon Barkley fourth, Matt Kelley at fantasy_mansion is coming for you. Yeah,
there is no escape.
Done. Well, that's the end of the show. A wonderful show it's been. Where can people catch you this week?
This week, as per usual, I'm at Endutton13. I have had a few of my fantasy free agency articles come out over at Rotoviz. I've also had the 10 least efficient wide receivers of the 2017 season out at Numberfire. The worst wide receiver in the NFL in terms of efficiency was historically crap. But I'm not going to tell you who it is.
Fantastic. I'm at Mandy7. To combine, we are at waxing_lyrical. Next week will be the Super Bowl show, but there's a possibility one of us won't be here as one of us is on his honeymoon.
Well, you asked the question, mate.
I did. But on that note, until next week, these top guys are out.